Now recording. Not that we have to start. We can chat for a few minutes, but uh, it's interesting, kind of the stuff that's been going on lately. And I had one thing I wanted to say before you guys all jump in. I've listed my first home in forever. You know, my son's home, and I'm starting to get all of these emails from that single listing, you know, all the showings, and you got to do the advertising, and you got to do this, and you got to do that. I'm starting to understand why you guys ignore my emails when I send them. They get lost in the mix. So I'm thinking, wow, how can I make the emails less for you guys so you don't have all this crap? Oh my goodness, it's amazing. I even got a text from somebody who wants to sell me postcards now that it's in the MLS, and it's just overwhelming. It's wow. And I called a doctor this morning. One more short story and we'll go. Called a doctor this morning to leave a message. She wants to list her house. Her voicemail's full. It's like it's full and not even set up. But you can send her a text. I think so many people now don't set up their voicemail or do the things that they're supposed to. And we as agents got to remember we got to check our voicemail even if we don't want to, because other people leave voice messages and we've got to respond to our clients the way they want to be. So I just thought I'd point that out. Boy, I'm letting a lot of people in the lobby now. So you all have missed my little stories. Ha 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 ha. Anyway, the reason we're all meeting here today is because multi-offers has just become a thing that's on nearly every listing right now, it seems like. I've got last week, Marie Seguda had 21 listings or 21 offers in 2 days, which to me is like overwhelming. And how do you get yours to stand out? And I know everybody on the call, as both our expert panels and those out there, have been taking clients out, presenting offers, and getting them turned down. So I thought maybe we'd call on some of the people that have been around a while, both from the listing side and the buyer side, and talk about how do you get an offer accepted? What do you do to get it differentiated? So the panelists should all introduce yourselves because you knew you were a panelist. So let's start with Dixie because, you know, I just thought she's in the middle of my screen. Dixie, say hello.
Hello.
Dixie's been around the business for 3-4 years now.
Your company, yeah.
And she's been in a couple of different multiple offer markets. Brenda and Chris up there in my upper left, say hello.
Hello.
If I recall right, you had a multiple offer scenario in Michigan that was just made ours look kind of minuscule, tiny in comparison.
That's true. But the fun thing in Michigan was all of the buyer's agents presented to the sellers. So when you had 10 offers on a house, you had 10 agents sitting in the lobby. And man, did they get angry when they didn't win. It was awesome.
Yeah, I kind of like the way we do it here.
I like the way we did it up there. It's like Thunderdome.
You two are so weird.
Yes, we are.
Weirdness is goodness.
Next on my list is Lance, and part of the reason I asked Lance, he too has been around through multiple things, but he's also kind of our connection to appraisers and how they do numbers. And so part of the, oh, cute puppy offers, cute puppy. Part of the thing that we have to deal with is when we have an offer that's above asking price and the appraisal comes in low, what do you do? So I asked Lance to be part of that. Cheryl's on the call. Hello, Miss Cheryl.
Hello.
She has been around again through multiple markets that have had multiple offers, but most of her experience comes from the listing end. She lists more houses than she sells, so I thought let's get somebody on who might be able to tell us how you differentiate a market listing or an offer. So
Careful.
Let's start there. Have any of my experts or anybody else, you can all chime in. When you get multiple offers, do you guys ever think about doing anything as backups? Does anybody ever want to be a backups, or is that just kind of a, so chime in, unmute and chime in.
I have a backup right now on the one I'm closing tomorrow, but now those people don't want to buy anything else. And they're going to wait because they said they'll never find anything like that again. So that's the bad thing, is getting them to where they already like something and can't have it.
Was it your own client then, or was it another agent's client?
It was a sign call.
Brenda raised her hands. You get backups a lot?
I am currently a backup on 2 different houses for my buyers, and I have 2 backups on pending properties.
Do other agents ever get kind of goosey when you tell them they're going to be a backup, or they say, thank goodness somebody took one of our offers, it's so bad out there?
Well, I always offer, you didn't win, you missed by a hair. Do you want to be a backup just in case something goes crazy?
How do you know you missed it by a hair?
Well, if I'm the listing agent.
Oh, okay.
If I'm the listing agent, I tell, and the offers are close, but they choose one over another, I'll always ask the other agent, stuff can go wrong. Do you want to be a backup? Do you want me to hold? Do you want us to sign this as a backup so that if anything goes wrong, you're first? I haven't had anybody tell me no. And then I tell the other agent, we've accepted your offer and taken a backup. So it helps when you're doing things like negotiating garbage repairs that, okay, you don't want to see, you want to go, cool.
Right.
I can tell you who the other agent is that's bringing their buyer if you want to sell them the home inspection.
So when you do backups, when do you let them out and when do you tell them it's done? On closing day, do you ever tell them if they find another house, do they have a contingency to remove their backup?
That's a good point.
And
let me jump in on this one. Chris and I both teach a class at RSCK in regards to additional addendums. It's advanced contract stuff. And we do cover the backup addendum, and at any time a buyer can back out of the backup addendum if they find something else. So they can back out. So for those of you who've never used a backup addendum, we do have the actual addendum in Instanet and so forth. And the other thing that you have to remember is the clock doesn't start on any of the stuff in the contract, on that backup contract, until the backup buyers become the primary buyers.
right.
So that addendum's in the Instanet form stuff.
Correct.
Great. Good to know.
Yep.
So all of you listing people, and Brenda and Dixie have jumped up already, and I think Cheryl's still in. If somebody is bringing you a multiple offer, would you consider letting them come in and present themselves? Or has somebody done something or a phone call or mentioned something? How do you decide when you're presenting multiple offers? What do you do to get it noticed?
I always call first immediately when I get in the car and say, because I've lost 2 recently by waiting till I got to the office and getting it written up and then calling and go, oh, well, we've just accepted one 30 minutes ago. So I call immediately and say, we're going to be bringing an offer. Here's a little bit of story about my buyer, and they love your house. And then ask them, and go wink, wink, if got any tips or hints you want to help me out to win the deal. But I have many times had buyer's agent or seller's agent say, there was so many that we finally decided we wanted to work with this lender or this agent. So I have gotten it before just because
Because you're cool.
Okay. Chris, Brenda, you guys did a lot of that up north. Was there anything people did when they came and sat in the office and presented, the best costume on the offer, or?
That's well, up north it was a little different because of the way we did things. But here I have been, I think, well, the last 9 offers that I've written have all been multiple offers. I have not, in the last 3 weeks, I have not written anything that wasn't multiple.
And how many did you get?
4.
Well, that's good odds.
That's real
Um,
good odds.
But the challenge that one thing that I do is I have a template that one of my clients wrote a while ago of a letter to the seller, thanking them for seeing their home, telling them who they are, what they do, why they like the house, whatever. And I send every one of my clients that template. And then in the offer, in the miscellaneous conditions, I make that a part of the offer so that the agent has to present that letter to the seller.
Have other people done that where the letter gets presented?
I've done letters. I even had one not too long ago do a little short video
Oh,
Really?
that's smart.
because they had kids with them, and the kids were like, one of the little kids was like 7 and was like, can we just move here? Can we just keep everything? I mean, it was just so cute. So I just had the whole family do one.
Oh, that
Did you
is
get it?
cute.
Brenda, what kind of verbiage do you put in the miscellaneous paragraph so it has to be presented? What do you say?
I say attached letter from the buyers, or letter from the buyers attached and made part of this contract.
I mean, I do
The other-
letters all the time. I say, make them, do the violin letter,
Exactly. But agents, when there's 5, 6, 7 offers, agents don't present the letter. So if you attach it and make it part of the contract, they have to.
And you write that in the miscellaneous. Very wise, very wise.
The other thing that I will throw out there, because I know we don't do a lot of it here in our market area, but if anybody ever wants to try the seller being presented by the buyer's agent or multiple buyer's agent, I mean, if anybody thinks that that will get the seller to go for something or it would make a good connection or something like that, if anybody ever wants to try it, or even if you want to ask someone to present and you need to know the rules, how it goes, procedures that we used to use, things like that, because there are a definite set of rules that need to be followed when you're presenting to the seller, what you do as the agent, what they do as the agent. So I'm just throwing it out there. If anybody ever wants to try it, just give me a holler and I can tell you what we used to do and how we
can get you a
keep
tour.
control.
Excellent. Good idea. By the way, Dixie, somebody asked on your video, did you get that offer accepted?
No.
Yeah, that sucks.
No. And I was part of the Marie's 21 offers, by the way.
Yeah.
And we went in 13,000 over ask and didn't get it.
Well, that's getting to my next two couple of kind of subjects. The first is, and I'm going to put Cheryl on the spot for this one. When you're presenting offers, do you ever talk to your client about the agent's reputation, company, things like that because Dixie had said somebody else had talked about they chose over agent or lender. How do you handle those kind of things?
And that's like a trap, right? You set me up here.
Darn right, because you're my biggest supporter of the code of ethics.
We are very clearly instructed in license law and code of ethics that we're not supposed to say anything derogatory about another agent or company. But I will be honest within the guidelines of what we're allowed to do. There are agents out there that price stuff low. If I see an agent's listing come on the market, I know it's going to be underpriced. That's just what they do. And I can support that with the market analysis to my buyers and just say, hey, guys, this is just, they price stuff like it was 10 years ago. If it is a good agent, if I've got 2 offers in front of me and I'm the listing agent, and there's one of the agents here that's a real hoop ball to work with, and then another one that is a Dixie ball, well, I'm telling you, your personality, your experience, your professionalism, this is where you get paid back for that stuff. Because I know I have won deals based strongly on experience of working with that agent in the past. They know what to expect. But we're not allowed to say anything derogatory, anything.
Well, I love the way you put that, and I've seen a lot of head shaking yes and no. And the biggest thing I have to say is, if a client asks you, if you have 2 offers you're going between, and I think if a client asks you, how would you choose one? I don't know that it's inappropriate to say, this agent has always been excellent to work
Oh,
with.
absolutely.
You don't
So
have to say anything negative.
Yeah.
You could say this
Exactly.
agent has been excellent.
Exactly. Now, as far as multiple offers, I've been on both sides of the deal, and we've been in this market, granted not this strong, but we've been in the seller's market for a couple of years. On the buyer side, Lance and I had this huge debate last week about this, but when I am on the buyer side, and let's say they want to offer $7,000 over full price, I let the buyers know that it is an option to offer to pay the difference in cash if that home does not appraise. That is an option. If the house is listed at 150, we offer 157, we get it. I write in the contract that should home not appraise, buyer will pay the difference. And that right there has gotten me the deal.
I have an addendum for that as a
Yeah.
seller's agent. So if anyone
Yeah.
wants that, I can share that addendum too.
And actually, you might give that to Greg and let him send that out to us. Let us take a look at that because that's great. You know, and if you don't write it in the contract,
No, we're not going to do that.
you can't do what?
Okay, it looked like Brenda started to say something and Lance started to say something. Lance, did you have something to add?
I think when it comes to Cheryl's spot on as far as the ethics part, you can't throw other realtors under the bus. I mean, that's as simple as that.
Is that
So-
the only part I'm spot on, Lance Hubert?
The way I like to handle it is I let my clients know who I've worked with in the past. You can talk about I can talk about the experiences I've had with transactions with Cheryl Hubert. If I've got multiple offers from Cheryl Hubert and Joe Jones, and I can say, well, I've worked with Cheryl before and she was great. I've worked with Joe before and it seemed like I had to do a lot of the stuff for Joe. And so you can talk like that. And the other thing I would say that I was trying to get out earlier is when we're talking about letters and how your sellers choose, you have to remember that your sellers have to decide either everybody knows that there's multiple offers or nobody knows. So just remember that. Number two, it's your seller's choice, not yours. They don't have to go with the highest and best offer. Not too long ago, I had a seller who went with a VA purchaser because the seller was a veteran. And the VA offer was a couple $1,000s less than the top offer. So just remember that it's your sellers who get to pick what they want to do.
I agree with that. Good point. So going down my little list here, and I think I'll skip that one. I like your comment. Everyone knows or nobody knows. So everybody's had some rejections lately. And then after this, we'll go into escalation clause. How do you help your clients? How do you prep them beforehand, afterhand to understand this market and know they're probably going to make some offers that aren't going to be accepted? How do you guys deal with that?
I'd like to jump in here real quick and just share with what Sandra and I had to do with one of her clients recently who was moaning and groaning about submitting offers higher than the list price. So what we did was I did a little bit of research in the area, and basically this is East Wichita from almost down to Derby up to Bel Air, Keachai, $150,000 to $210,000 homes. What I did was I pulled up all the ones that have sold in the last 2 months, just the last 2 months, because that's when it's been really active, and have sold, went under contract within 7 days, just 7 days. It was only on the market for 7 days. 74% of those listings went under contract at or higher than the list price. 74%. So what that showed me is if I'm just going to start working with buyers who are like, well, I don't want to pay list price or higher than list price, I'm going to do just a little bit of research and show them, listen, if you find something that you like, you're at with the way our market is right now, you're going to have to at least offer list price or higher if you want to get into it, because that's the way our market is right now. It's supply and demand. So I just wanted to share that with you guys that I was shocked. 74%. sold at or higher than list price.
Okay.
Hey, I want to kick something in. I want to ask Lance or anybody else this. Going with those statistics that you have, which are great, they're wonderful. Have you guys found it hard to get appraisals to come in when they're that far over asking, or are the appraisers starting to loosen up? I know what we see over here. I'm just wondering your opinions.
No, appraisers are assholes.
Amen, sister.
Don't hold back, Dixie. Tell us how you feel.
Ah,
I haven't had one come in low in a while, so maybe it's just, I don't know. But on to piggyback on what Lance helped me with yesterday, my buyer, he's an accountant, so he's adamant he doesn't want to pay over asking price. So finally, it didn't help convince him that he needed to go in higher. But our conversation was, okay, if you're not willing to pay higher than asking price, which is what it's going to take in many cases to get it done, then I suggest we let these new listings set for a few days. And if they don't go under contract, then we go look, because you're wasting your time and mine by not being willing to go. I mean, I was trying to get them to go in 1,500 over yesterday, which isn't substantial. They're 20% down conventional. I mean, strong. And nope, I don't want to pay more. And I showed him the numbers that this house was priced correctly. It wasn't overinflated, but he's a numbers guy. So at least now I know that I don't have to waste my time going out when it went on the market last night or first thing this morning, because if it's around in 4 to 5 days, then maybe we have a shot at least getting it for asking price.
Good
Or list price,
strategy.
I mean.
Great
And the other
strategy.
thing that I showed a house yesterday, and one of the things that popped in my mind as I was talking with the buyers is that, yes, you can pay. It's better to pay a higher price now, over the list price, a higher price now at the interest rates that we have right now, versus waiting a while. Once our economy starts recovering and the interest rates start going up, obviously I believe that the prices will start coming down or balancing out, but the interest rates are going to go up. So I was just basically telling the buyers, it's better to buy high now with a low interest rate than buy low and have a higher interest rate, because it'll cost you more in the long run.
That's a good
That was
point.
one thing that popped in my head yesterday, and I'm like, oh, I'm going to start using that.
Okay. Dixie, you
Sandra?
raised your hand.
yeah, I wanted to address Sandra's situation, where she said that her buyer has 20% down. I have a list. I'll hold it up here. This is kind of what I do for my selling people. We get multiple offers. I put it on a board and I say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I put it all in one glance with certain key points of the offer. And one of the deals that got accepted not too long ago was because they had so much down, they weren't worried about appraisal so much, because that buyer clearly had enough money to make the difference if we needed to go that route.
Right.
So that might be a plus for her buyer because he's putting so much down.
Oh, absolutely. But you know what? I can guarantee that if it didn't appraise, he wouldn't be willing to,
Right.
He would,
That's true.
because he's so number driven. I mean, Lance and I worked for 2 hours yesterday twisting numbers, and he was like, nope, I want to leave it at asking price. I'm like, okay, we're against 4 other offers minimum. You're strong in every other aspect. If you come in just a little bit high, we might be the one just because of the strength of your lending situation. But he's a numbers guy, so that didn't fly. But at least now, hopefully I won't be wasting my time as much running out every single night.
I have done the same thing and told my people who refuse to pay asking or better that we won't look at anything until it's a week on the market, because there's no reason to break their heart unless they're truly willing to change. And one of the things that I have, I said to my guy just this weekend was, okay, let me ask you this. I understand that a property is, you have an aversion to paying more than what they're asking for it. But if you and your wife walked into something and absolutely fell in love with it, and I could prove to you the value, would you be willing to make an offer that's over, even though it's adverse to you? Would you be willing to do that if it were what you consider the perfect home? And his answer was, yeah, well, probably, maybe. And I said, or would you feel better having the not quite perfect home and getting it for asking or less?
Yep.
Because this is an emotional ride. And what I don't want to do is show you something that is worth what you would be paying for it and you fall in love with it, and then have you compare everything else to that house and not be able to get it. So you need to tell me where your thought process is, but I don't want to set you up for failure. And ultimately he came to, we would pay over if we really liked it. And, you know, that conversation of gut check time is with every single buyer right now. You know, how much are you willing to pay, where if you don't get it in your offer, you're not upset because you would not have paid $1 more.
Right.
That's
Great.
the bottom line. And I have made offers that are $7,000, $8,000, $10,000 over, and I just lost one this week because we were the highest, but the seller was so concerned about an appraisal that they took a lower offer because they were afraid our offer the appraisal wouldn't come in.
Cheryl's got her hand
Cheryl.
up. Go ahead,
Yeah,
Cheryl.
Cheryl wanted us to talk about the multi-offer form for a minute.
This is something I've been doing for a while, is the multiple offer form is now part of my listing consultation, because you need to let them know that if they do everything to stage it, prepare the house, we price it right, we will be in a multiple offer situation. You have this conversation with them at the listing table, not when things are hitting the fan. So include that multiple offer form in your listing packet. So when you're sitting there, you can present it to them. Let them have a conversation with you before things get crazy on how they would prefer to handle a multiple offer situation. It doesn't hurt. And as long as you're doing it honestly, with integrity, it doesn't hurt that you are planting confidence in your abilities and preparing them for this situation. Guys, if we do everything we're talking about doing to get the home ready, if we price it right, we will more than likely be in a multiple offer situation. And the chances are that if it is a competing listing, if other agents are going out, it's a strong chance that nobody else is doing that. So it just ups your professionalism in your game as well.
Okay, I'm going to throw a caveat and see what your response is, Cheryl. First off, I love everything you said. If I've got a $700,000 home I'm going to put on the market, would you bring that form out then, or would you say, I don't know if I'd bring it out then?
This is when you just use logic,
Okay.
you know, because the stats that you put out every month are right on target for us. If we're listing a house for 100,000 and we're looking at those stats that you put out, heck yeah, you're going to want that. But what type of market is a $700,000 home? You know, now if it's a $700,000 home in an area of $1 million homes, then possibly. We use logic for when you want to include that.
Excellent. Thank you. Now,
you know, one of the things, real quick, Greg, one of the things that we were talking about, and Chris had asked about this earlier, and Dixie's talked about the appraisals and changing the contract for the appraisals and so forth. You know, it wasn't too long ago, and we still do complain about the low appraisals and so forth, which is great. But now we're to the point where you can actually tell your buyers that, okay, we're going to go in high, but let's hope that the appraisal comes in lower so that the seller has to come down on price. Well, that's not always necessarily the truth, but I just find it kind of ironic and funny that, you know, we want appraisers to come in high, yet now we want some protection for the buyers because we want them to, you know, come down low if we come in high with our price. So I just find it kind of ironic that that we're in that scenario right now.
I do say that with my buyer. I do tell them right now we're probably just playing head games with the seller more than likely. Because like the last deal with Marie, her seller literally said, I said, are you going to cut off the showings? And she said, no. He said that he wished he could take off work and just sit back and watch the circus. And so I told my buyers, I was like, we're just playing head games with the seller right now. So it really doesn't matter how far high we go, because I said, there's no way it's going to appraise. I ran the numbers every which way I could run them. And they were so tight each way that I knew that we were already 10 grand over what it was going to appraise for. So I said,
Well,
the
I
number
ju-
doesn't matter now, you know?
I just know that I like appraisals to be high because then I make more money, and I like that part. And you guys should too. You make more money when the appraisal's up. One thing I want to make sure we have time to cover, a lot of people were interested in Chris's discussion about an escalation clause. And we have been on for 30 minutes. So Chris, take 5 minutes. It's not used in this area very much, but maybe it ought to come back here. Or is it being used now, Brenda? Is
Yeah,
everybody else seeing escalation clauses a lot here?
yes.
Okay.
You're muted.
Now
Uh,
you're muted. I can hear you.
had experience with 4 of them in the last 10 days.
Well, then let's discuss escalation clauses because they have apparently made a comeback. Let's go.
Oh, me.
Take it away, Chris.
Okay. Well, escalation clauses, they can be good and they can be bad. It depends on what side of the fence you're on. So as far as the discussion goes, I don't really know what you guys want with them or how they are. If you're pro escalation clause, then use them. If you're not, they can be very hard, mostly if you're on the listing side. Because if you're on the listing side with all of these offers that are coming in, you now have something that you need to deal with that will keep bumping. And how do you deal with that is what I'm saying. Now, KREC's opinion on this is escalation clause are not illegal. They can use them, but KREC's opinion is that because as soon as you put an escalation clause in the miscellaneous paragraph, there is no defined price on the offer, and an offer is not valid without a defined price. So KREC says, although they're not illegal, it's really not a good offer. So if you are on the side of the fence where you don't like escalation clauses because it makes the multiple things messy, you can always state what KREC says. The other point that I want to bring up is if you're using escalation clauses or if you're seeing escalation clauses, most of them are written to where you have to prove it. You have to prove it to the agent why it needed to be escalated. So how are you handling it when you have to show confidential information? So the seller does not own that offer. It's not like it's theirs that they can just show anybody anything, right? So how do you prove it? And still stay in the guidelines of what we're supposed to stay in. And then what happens if you have an escalation clause, which happened to Brenda last week, where the escalation clause got maxed out and the offers were still above that? Now do you go back and give them another chance to escalate even higher and higher and higher? So escalation clauses can be really, really bad. Now, if there's anybody out there that doesn't know what an escalation clause is or how it works, let me know and I can explain it, or anybody can explain it. I'm not the only one. I just wanted to bring it up because they're tricky.
For sellers, I have been very lucky explaining escalation clauses by telling the seller what you are actually doing is countering this offer. And whenever you counter, even though this is in theory the highest price, whenever you counter an offer, you have to get everybody to agree. So although they have said when they wrote this offer that they would go this high, because this offer doesn't have a set price, you are making a counter to this buyer. And they can, without any consequences to them, when we bring this back to them and say, okay, your escalation clause 1 at X amount, they can say, no, thanks. We're not going to go that high. Or they say, okay, which happened to me a couple weeks ago. They say, okay, they'll do it. And then it doesn't come signed for a day and a half. And a day and a half later, the agent calls you up and says, well, we've been thinking. And now the fervor for the house is over. You've got all the people who already saw it and lost. possibly back under contract with something else, and the buyer gets an upper hand. And it happened to me with an agent, and the agent said, I do this all the time. So it's a tactic.
So
And
a couple of
escalation
questions,
tactics.
just for some of the newbies who may not quite get the escalation clause. In its most simple form, when you're bidding on stuff on eBay, you can put a maximum bid in there, and then eBay will say, I'm going up $4, I'm going up $5 every time you bid, whatever. And then you get a notice, your maximum bid has been maxed out. So that's kind of what an escalation clause is. If another offer comes in, I'll go up X amount, and that's the price. The difference between what eBay said and what Brenda just said is on the eBay, you're committed contractually. As Brenda said, in this mode, you're not committed. You're just saying, I would pay that much if we all come to an agreement. Is that correct, Brenda? Okay. So can I, as a seller, and just a second, Dixie, and I'll come back to you.
You got two hands up on the bottom too.
Oh, yeah, I do. I got a couple. If, as a seller, if I don't want to deal with escalation clauses, can I reject the escalation altogether or inform the buyer agent we won't consider them?
Yes, you can. You can absolutely do that. You can as I said in the beginning, you can also state back to them what KREC said. And generally, if you come back to an agent with something that the real estate commission has put out, it tends to deflate their puffy chest.
Okay.
But
go ahead.
Sorry, I got muted by accident. But no, you can reach. It's just like any other offer. I mean, like Brenda said, she lost the highest offer because they didn't feel it was going to be praised. Well, it's the same thing with the escalation clause. You can reject it straight out because you don't feel that they're going to play fair, or or it's not good, or what KREC says, or for any of the reasons.
When you explain it to a seller, many sellers say, I don't want to mess with that. And the joy of my day is going to an agent who wrote an escalation clause and telling them, we chose another offer, and their answer is, how is that possible? Ours had to be the highest. And I tell them, my standard answer is, there is more to every offer than price.
Yep.
Very good. Dixie,
it was my
had your
seller's
hand
decision.
up.
So you put one in, like it's $100,000 and say up to 150?
Yes.
I mean, instead of just saying, hey, sky's the limit, because who's to say, and how do we go about proving that they didn't go just as max, do we get any kind of confirmation of what the other offers were?
Well, that's what I was saying. All of the escalation clauses that I've ever seen come over have you must prove it to me written in the clause, X dollars up to a certain point, and then you have to show proof. My question, and I always say, or, we always talk about, I can't prove it to you because I can't show you the offer. If I show you the offer and that other agent finds out, like Lance said in the chat, if that other agent finds out, oh my goodness, we can be taken to task for that. So, how do you prove it? So it really, they're really starting to put you as the listing agent in a bad position. I'm only going to give you this if you prove it to me. Well, if the seller wants the offer, which if it's more money, most of them will. So now what do? If you don't do like Brenda said and explain to them, I have to show this offer. So I have to tell the other buyer's agent, look, I have to show your offer to prove that you lost. Do you think the other agent and the buyer is going to give you permission for that? Now, some agents will say, screw it, I don't care. I'll show anybody anything. As soon as they hand it to my seller, it's mine, and I can do whatever I want with it.
Well, I disagree with that.
I don't hold to that. So it's a very tricky situation in the proving, and many agents have gone to battle over, you got to prove it to me, you don't got to, and I won't prove it to you. So it becomes a really weird spot, and the deal can fall apart even though they got the higher price. I'm sorry, Erica.
Yeah,
I know you
Erica.
got your hand up.
Go ahead, Erica.
Oh, you're fine. Oh, I just wanted to know, is there a specific form for this, or are we supposed to try and come up with verbiage on our own? And if so, where do we put it?
It's verbiage on your own. As far as I know, there's no standard because KREC doesn't really approve of it. They haven't made it illegal, but they don't approve of it, so there's no standard verbiage. You would just put it in the miscellaneous paragraph of the contract, or I suppose you could write it on a separate addendum and then attach the addendum in the miscellaneous paragraph. Either way. But it just gets written in there and becomes part of the contract. And it's basically very simple verbiage. The verbiage is, offer is blank and it gets upped by 100, 500, 1,000 over the highest offer to a maximum of blank. And then you have to show me proof that how it got escalated.
Well, I will say in general, as a broker, I'm not a fan of escalation clauses. I
Right.
much prefer our multi-offer form, and tell our agents to present. I've got so many. Sharon's got her dog. Dixie's got her dog. The Knopferts have their. I'm going to start bringing my dog to the office. That's all there is to it. I'm not a fan of them. I think we are better off telling our people, present your best and highest. And that's what the multi-offer form kind of says. But if another agent gives you a escalation clause, you need to know how to deal with it and what you would tell your sellers about it and how it would work. Please check with me, Chris, anybody in the office that you think might be able to advise you on those.
And Greg, real quick, if I can jump in, and maybe this was said, but when you have to show proof of the other offer, I've ran into this situation, not necessarily with an escalation clause, but with something else. You may have to redact everything that's on that contract except for the terms. And so then what's to say a listing agent who's kind of shady doesn't just draw up a fake contract and redact everything you don't know what's what. And so the escalation clauses are just, in my eyes, are a little scary.
Maybe
I
just
say that
depending
for
on
most
if it's with agents that we know and respect, that you put that offer out there.
And I have 2 points that have always blown my mind with escalation clauses, and I don't have any answers. They're just points. License law says that all offers must be presented, and any offer, when you get multiple offers, they must be presented simultaneously, is actually what the law says, which doesn't make any sense, but they have to be presented simultaneously. My question with an escalation clause is, if you offer, by example, 150 with an escalation clause of $100 over the highest offer up to 162, isn't that in effect 2 offers or 40 offers? Because every offer that you have is 150, 155, 156, 157, all the way up to 162. So when you write that escalation clause, isn't the offer that was written really 162, regardless of what other offers come behind it?
Now, the agents will tell you no, because it doesn't constitute a separate offer because there is no triggering effect up to that height. But it's one of those where they really ride the line. They're looking at it from their side, you're looking at it from your side. And I go back to what KREC said. KREC says there is no defined price point. And if there is no defined price point, that means it's more of every offer or no offer, in my opinion.
Dixie,
and
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I think Suzanne makes an excellent point or excellent question. Can you put no escalation clause in the listing remarks? So you can tell them right away that you're not playing with this. Now, I don't know. I don't have an answer on whether you can or you can't. It seems to me if you didn't, you might be hurting your seller and not getting some offers in. It might be better to get the offer with the escalation clause and then rip the escalation clause out
To the dog door.
at the offer part. But I don't know. What is
I want
Greg
her to be
saying?
able to escape.
Dixie, you had your hand up.
Yeah, so we only have to worry about this if we are the listing agent and a buyer brings us one. Is that what I'm following? I mean,
Well, you have to present.
Was
That's
here,
the law.
and he came in here and then she disappeared.
but we
Okay.
can tell them that after discussing it with our sellers that we're not going to do those things,
That's
right?
correct.
Okay.
Well, Brenda
They can
says
bring us
no.
a-
You cannot tell them
Solid
that you're not
or
going to
nothing,
do it.
because something that has a open air top,
Well,
it's not really an offer.
and I kind of see where Brenda's shaking her head. You can put in there that your client won't. Somebody's got their microphone on and a lot of noise in the
Alita,
background.
Alita needs to mute her mic. There you go.
Okay, you're good.
Okay, so Brenda makes a good head shake point, is that you're not allowed to not present, but you can tell them your client will not consider any escalation clauses. And so if they write one up, you present it to your client, but they can say, no, I'm not considering that, and you're done.
Okay.
Brenda, you're saying something?
As long as you explain it to your seller and it comes from them, not you. You have to give your seller an opportunity. I mean, I explained escalation clauses in the most negative light I possibly could, and my seller said, I still want to give it a shot because it's the best price. So let's give it a shot. So, but it has to come from them. So saying to your seller, we have this escalation clause, but I won't deal with it, or we don't want to take this without any explanation, this is a very small community. Should they ever go to church and say, well, we had this really high offer that this agent wrote, but my agent told me we don't deal with those, it's going to bite you in the ass. But if you explain it and say, you're risking a lot. And with the escalation clause that they ended up accepting, we still have to go through home inspection and appraisal to get to closing. And I have warned them every step of the way. Be careful.
So Chris,
And the
can
thing
you
that I
send us
would-
some kind of paper that gives us that verbiage that where KREC says that what you were.
Yes, it's hanging on. Well, Greg's not in the West office, but in the West office, it is hanging on the board in front of where I used to sit and look. It's
Uh-huh.
highlighted and sitting there. It was in one of KREC's newsletters. It's there, the verbiage that they have that explain this.
I'll
So
pull
if you're
it
at the West
out
office, you can find next time Greg's at the West office, you can find it. But the thing that one of my final points, and I know Ray Bachman had his hand up. I still don't know if he does or not, but one of the final things I want, whether you like escalation clauses, don't want to use them, don't want to use them, you're going to get them.
Mhm.
And when you get them, the thing you need to be able to deal with, so work it out in your mind right now, not when you're sitting at the table with the listing. Work it
Right.
out in your head right now. What are you going to do when that person says to you, prove to me? How are you going to handle that? Are you going to show it to them? Are you going to tell the seller what it means? Just make sure you have that worked out now, because you don't want to look like you're bumbling in front of your clients.
Right. Good point.
Also,
Okay.
I want to throw this out at you guys real quick, is even whether it's an escalation clause or multiple offers, you have to remember that you are allowed to negotiate as many offers as you want until you and your sellers have reached a final agreement on something. So I'm sitting here thinking, okay, I could do the escalation clause, or I could sit here and either verbally, preferably not, but by writing, continue to negotiate a price with that until your sellers have decided, okay, we'll take that offer.
Good
I'm
point.
confused, though, the way you just said that, we can't negotiate more than one offer at a time.
Sure, you
Correct.
can. Absolutely, you can. You can negotiate as many offers as you want at the same time.
That's not what I've ever thought. Okay. How are you going to do that if two people or more say, okay?
I like Brenda's comment. Letter of intent are far more effective. Correct.
Yeah, let's blow your mind with letters of intent.
No, let's not go down that path today. We're already way over, and I want to and I'm not disagreeing with Lance. The way I would handle multiple offers is call the one that I thought was most likely and say I need an answer in an hour and tell the others we're waiting on one. You can do multiple, and whoever answers first, it's not technically illegal, but it's not the way I would do it. Let me put it that way. However, let's stop the recording. Thank you all very much. Thank you, panel, for everything you helped us with today. And we will see you next Tuesday.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Goodbye.
I miss you all.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, the recording is stopped.